Welcome to video game versus typically where we have same genre, different generations going head to head. But today we're gonna do same genre, same generation, different IP. And today's contenders are Super Smash Bros. Ultimate versus Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2. The reason why I picked these two games to go against one another because obviously Nick All-Stars Brawl 2 is inspired by Super Smash Bros. But it's still a really good game. So I wanted to be able to see which one is the better platform fighting game. So here we go. Round one, numbers and metrics. The first numbers and metrics score that we're going to focus on is culture versus critics. Well, I take the culture score, which is going to be an average Metacritic score that's given by people like you and me, and averaging out with a Google percentage like score versus the critic score on Metacritic. We're going to get a point for both of them. And Super Smash Bros. Brawl actually gets both of these points because they have a higher culture score and a higher critic score. The critic score being a 93 on Metacritic and a culture score that averages out to 91.5 compared to Nickelodeon All-Stars' Metacritic score of 77 by critics and a culture score that averages out to only 80. So that's 2 points for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The final number of metrics that we're going to judge the game by is by game sales. In this category, whoever has gotten the most game sales gets 1 point. And the point goes to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's actually the most sold Switch game of all time with 38 million units sold, compared to Nickelodeon All-Stars, who has a little bit less than 50,000 units sold on Steam. And I can't really judge where it's got other sales anywhere else, but I know for a fact that it don't got more than 38 million units sold overall. It's just a shoe-in for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. They get the point. All right, round two, content. This round we're gonna judge all the content within the game. So the amount of characters, the amount of stages, DLC expansions, game modes, all those things are going to count as points. So the very first thing is how many characters do the game have in total? And you get an extra point if the game actually allows you to unlock the characters compared to the characters being already available, which is a terrible habit that a lot of fighting games have gotten into as of late. The point goes to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate because it has 74 characters compared to Nickelodeon's less than 30 characters, which they are already unlocked compared to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate where you have to unlock all the characters. So that's actually 2 points for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for having the most characters. The second part of this content section, how many stages do the game have in total? This is worth 1 point. Actually, Super Smash Bros. Gets another point for having 103 stages compared to Nickelodeon All-Stars 20 plus stages. And the next part of this content section is how many DLCs or expansions did the developers dish out towards us? Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with over 50 pieces of DLC in total, while Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl only has 7. So Super Smash Bros. Get the point. To the last part of this content section is how many game modes do the game have in total? Super Smash Bros. Brawl has a whopping 13 game modes, while Nickelodeon All-Stars only has 9. So Super Smash Bros. Ultimate gets the point again and completely sweeps the first 2 rounds. The next round is gameplay. So we're going to be talking about the super moves in the game, the character variety, how much of a challenge the game is, and the character customization within the game. So here we go. The first part of the gameplay round, we got which game has the better super moves, and this is worth 1 point. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate actually paved the way for Nickelodeon with the super moves, and it was kind of copied and pasted with the Nickelodeon game. So I'm going to give this to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate because obviously they drew inspiration. So it wouldn't be fair to say that Nick has the better super moves overall. So Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with another point. The second part of this is going to be which game has better character variety. So let's see. Both of these games actually have a lot of great character variation across the board. Even though Nick has less characters, it still has great variety between all of them. They all play different from one another. But Super Smash Bros. Not only has a lot of great character variation, they just have a significant more amount of characters overall. So they kind of win by default just off of the strength. They just have more characters. So technically, yes, it is going to be way more variety. So Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with another point. All right, the next part of this is which game is more of a challenge. After playing both of these games, I'm going to go with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I feel like they have way more difficulty in every single fight if you crank it all the way up to 9 compared to Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, where every fight can be very doable for the most part. It's more of an endurance thing once you fight a lot of characters in succession. So this one I'm going to go ahead and give to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Next part part of this is which game has better character customization? And this is worth 1 point. While Nick does have great costume variation overall, and I actually enjoy their costume variation much better than Super Smash Bros. Unfortunately, Super Smash Bros. Ultimately has way more color variation and costume variation overall. Each character having at least about, I would say, 5 different color variations or costume variations compared to Nickelodeon's 3. But ultimately, I would say even with that, because they both have great costume and color variation, I would give both of these games a half of a point. So the final round is going to be technical performance. This is going to be centered around which game feels better, which game has better stage design, and are the characters balanced overall. So for the first part, we're going to focus on which game feels better. When I say that, I'm talking about like movement speed, you know, the hit impacts, just the overall smoothness within the play. I'm going to give this point to Nick All-Stars. I feel like this game has a little bit more of a smooth feel to it overall. Something about it just feels a little bit more less jaggedy compared to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I feel like that game, you know, no matter how hard you go left or right, you kind of like going into a full sprint or an instant sprint. It just feels like you're moving a little bit too quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and get this to Nick All-Stars. Second part of this is which game has better stage design? I'm thinking about, can you use objects around the stage? Are there any nearby NPCs that's involved? Do the stage itself affect the gameplay? Things of that order. And I think this is pretty obvious. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate gets this point because there are so many stages that actually provide you with a crazy amount of stage involvement overall that affects the fight within itself. Whereas Nick All-Stars, none of these stages really affect the gameplay. I would say outside of the platforming aspect, none of the stages really involve themselves with how the fight goes. So Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with another point. The last part of this is, are the characters balanced? And this is for 1 point. I'm going to give this to Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2. Overall, no matter who you pick within this game, everybody has such a different style and nobody's like crazy overpowered. Nobody's just completely weak altogether. Compared to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, everybody knows if somebody picks King DDD, Donkey Kong, Bowser, and they don't even have to be that great at the game, even Ganondorf, these people just hit way too freaking hard. The fight is going to lean a little bit more to their side compared to everybody else. So I'm going to give this to Nick All-Stars for just having more balanced characters overall. So the final verdict is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate having 12.5 points and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 having 2.5 points. So Super Smash Bros. Ultimate wins by a landslide. And that was this episode of Video Game Versus. If you have any video games that feel like should go head to head in Video Game Versus, let me know in the comments and I will be happy to go ahead and do it. If I got the game and if I can buy it. But until then, peace in Jesus' name.